Good afternoon, family. I'm Curtis Cheatham Jr., and welcome to This Week in Black America. And here's a rundown of this past week's highlights. There seems to be a bit of a lover's quarrel stirring in D.C., and things are escalating quickly. So we've got all the latest on the busted bromance, and we'll get into that. The Ukraine unleashed a fierce Trojan horse attack against Russian military targets this week, causing concerns over American ports and their safety. We'll get into it. A multi-billionaire has vowed to give the majority of his wealth away to the continent of Africa. We'll get into that as well. First-term mayor in Tulsa, Oklahoma, introduces a bold reparations bill or plan for the descendants of the Greenwood massacre. So we'll explore that. And the Congressional Budget Office released its analysis of the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, as well as the return of the Trump travel bans. So all of that and more on This Week in Black America. And of course, I got my brother with me here. Brother Deshone, how are you doing, brother?
I feel great. Thank you for asking. Good to see you, brother. And good to see Benita, one of our co-hosts, checking in early.
All right.
If this is your first time here, we catch up on the week's happenings and specifically how it affects us here in Black America or as Black Americans. So I invite you to hit the like button if you're going to spend some time with us. If you enjoy what you're hearing throughout the show and you want to meet us here every Friday at noon Eastern time, we're here for about an hour and a half. If the stories go long and the conversation gets good, listen, Curtis is like, no, we haven't been here an hour and a half. We try to end in an hour and a half. But sometimes we go to 2 p.m. Eastern, depending on the conversation and the story. So please hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the show. And Curtis, why don't you cue us up, man? We have a lot to discuss this week. When don't we?
Seems like it's always that's always the case, but this one is just juicy. I wanted to get some popcorn today because it seemed appropriate for the things going on in DC. So obviously we know Trump and Elon have been having this bromance where they've been loving on each other all along, but apparently there's been a quarrel. And I don't know, the timeline of this, it's so weird. First of all, it seemed like everything was fine. Musk, his time ended as what do you call it, a special government employee. So he went back to the private sector. But now the so-called Big Beautiful Bill comes out, and all of a sudden Elon starts chirping from the background that it's a terrible bill. He goes to his X platform and starts speaking to his 200 million followers that he thinks it's an abomination, that anybody who supports this bill should be primaried or get out of office. All these things he just spurting off. And it just, what it reminded me of, frankly, is like two elementary school students arguing with each other. And then it just keeps escalating, because neither of them have impulse control. But we can get into the details of it, but it just devolved into like a name-calling thing. Of course, highlighting or culminating almost with Musk dropping a little bit of drop a little stank on it by saying that maybe indicating that maybe Trump may be in those Epstein files, and without any proof. But you don't necessarily need proof in this day and age. You just got to drop the rumor and let it go where it's going. So there's still more to explain there, but I want to hear your thoughts on this so far. What we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, listen. This is, as you said, it came out of nowhere. For those of you who aren't aware, like, we watched President Trump basically give Elon a great sending off. They're in the Oval Office. Elon's got the black eye, and it's just like, you've been great. And then next thing you know, we see a tweet from Elon Musk that says, well, a number of tweets, but I think the first one was the one that broke, which was he was saying about the big beautiful bill being a huge problem and a bad idea. So that
Right.
was his first stance against President Trump. And those of you who are on X, listen, I can only tolerate so much of X, but I did have to pop in there and I did have to see kind of, Elon's going war mode. Like this wasn't critical of the bill. It started out that way, but like you said, Curtis, it escalated to, well, he wouldn't even won without me.
Exactly.
Like, oh. And then next thing you know, President Trump responds and says Elon was wearing thin. He said Elon was wearing thin.
Right.
And now it's like, whoa, all right. Now it's a right, left. And, everybody has their popcorn, whether you're a MAGA person, whether you're a non-MAGA person, whether you're a bystander, whether you're sitting in another country somewhere. These were the two most influential men, and are rather two of the most influential men in the world right now, with one being President Trump running this country, and then Elon, as you said, having well over 200 million followers and running X among other worldwide companies. And these guys were just buddy, and now it's a lover's quarrel. So the question is, do we think this is fixable? Do we think that this is a relationship that goes left? And obviously for those of you who are watching right now, you guys know you are our co-host. Let us know, how have you kind of been into what's going on? Did you see this, or are you just hearing about this? My question is this repairable? Do we see them coming back together at some point, or do we see it going even further apart? Has too much been said already, Curtis, where there might not be any healing from this? Or do we think there's some people saying this is, obviously there's always going to be people saying this whole thing is planned.
Yeah.
You always got that bunch, but this doesn't look planned. But again,
not to me.
Do you think that they can repair this, or do you see them drifting apart after this? What are your call? And then, let's hear what the audience and what the co-host is saying.
I'm not sure, because listen, these are two people with fragile egos. Let's just call it like we see it, right? And one of them get their feelings hurt and they feel like they have to respond. It's not like they can ever like just absorb some sort of criticism or perceived criticism and just let it roll off. What does the Jay-Z say? Get the dirt off your shoulder. That's the thing. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like they're not doing that. It's like once you say something to me, it's gonna be a fight. It's like the thing we used to do with the kids. Put the I don't know if you did this. This might be before your time, but we put a little stick on your shoulder, and if you knocked the stick off the shoulder, it was a fight situation or things like that. Those kind of silly games that we played as kids seems to be reenacted on the world stage between two of the more wealthy men in the world. And it's all because I think they have fragile egos and each wants to be seen as the top dog. And, right now Trump's got that moniker, and I don't think Musk likes it. So it's going to be interesting. Now, there was word this morning, the latest update was this morning, that Musk is looking to maybe have a conversation with Trump. So we don't know what kind of conversation that would be. Clearly, though, even if we go back to the little kid, Musk's son in the Oval Office a couple months ago, we know that there's got to be some underlying issues or some underlying disdain, if you will, from Musk towards Trump. But I think in the end they'll probably smooth it all over, just because they're two unmelanated guys with a lot of money. What do they got to be what do they really got to be complaining about? When you strip it all away.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
and look at the fact that whatever their long-term goals are, like both of them seems to be power. So do we see them not working together when both of their goals? I mean, these two guys are on the world stage, like we said, two of the most influential guys. And that's why I was reading, because you know how sometimes you're having an argument with somebody and they say something and it's like, see, and that's why, you know, your eye always been crooked your whole life. And now it'd be like, next day you're like, okay, we made up. But you're like, wait.
But you talked about me yesterday.
You said something that I don't know. See, that's why one of your legs is shorter than the other. Wait, this ain't just regular.
Exactly.
You get, so when I'm looking at what Elon is saying, you know,
I'm waiting for your mama jokes. I'm waiting for your mama jokes to start coming out.
If you start getting personal, it depends on if you're criticizing the bill. You're criticizing the bill because he's saying that the bill is going to add to the deficit, and it is the interest payments alone. He's retweeting a lot of people who are speaking about. One of this was a talk he did yesterday, talking about, you know, if America goes insolvent, can't pay his debts, there's no money. You don't have a country. So his whole thing with petitioning this is not necessarily a personal attack on President Trump. It's more of an attack on the bill. He did say some things that could be viewed as, like, even this one here. This one here, he's talking about, you know, we pay $1.2 billion a year in just interest on the debt. So total government spending is around $7 trillion. The amount we spend on interest on our debt exceeds what we spend in defense. So this has been the thing, but there was a couple things here that was a little bit like, especially what you said, Curtis, when we consider that these people have egos that are really fragile. It's one here that, look, the Epstein, that was the, you know, the Epstein.
That was the big one. That ain't got
nothing to do with the bill.
Exactly. That was below the belt.
That has nothing to do. Hold on. Did the Epstein tweet come out before the bill criticism?
No, the bill criticism came out first.
Okay.
And then it kind of, there were a couple other jabs back and forth. And then this, the kind of the bombshell was the Epstein thing. And now, I mean, to add more fuel to the fire, Steve Bannon, who of course is a trusted Trump advisor going back to his first run as president, he's actually now calling for the deportation and the investigation of Musk's immigration status. Now, it's always been rumored that Musk came here illegally, right? We've always been hearing those whispers, and in fact, the Musk brothers on a podcast or something admitted as much. So it's not even an allegation that we know that they came here illegally. So now Steve Bannon is calling for the deportation of Musk. This is really, I got to share this because it was somebody on my Facebook page. I thought this was the funniest thing. Of course, context, this is Pride Month, right? June is Pride Month. This messy billionaire bromance breakup is truly the gayest thing about Pride Month. I thought that was the funniest thing I had seen. Thank you, Val, for posting that on your timeline yesterday. This is just, who would have thought that we in America, we had, I don't know, 60 years ago, when I came into this world, it was a completely different place. And who would have thought that we would be here now, where, you know, the president is involved in name calling? And I mean, how many times a day do you cringe when you see 47 on the TV or at a news press conference? It's like, how many times a day do I just like, oh my goodness? Anyway.
Well,
That's
you know,
just me.
I'm a little bit more.
I know.
I
I
think
know.
I gotta eventually, you know, do some business with him.
I get
So,
it.
you know, so but I could certainly, you know, you see people tweeting or reposting President Obama's talks, and they'll just do a back to back, and it's just such a difference in just the way things are communicated. Even when they do the joke about how, you know, when President Trump and our military went in and got Osama bin Laden, and then
Mm.
they side by side that with, you know, President Trump going and getting the gentleman over there, and he barely, the way he pronounces his name is so funny. It's just such a contrast. It's a stark contrast of how we're getting, how we're seeing the country governed now, and you know, when you look at, you just mentioned Steve Bannon,
Right.
and Steve Bannon being almost like he comes out like he's daggone the enforcer. You know what I mean? That's what he feels like sometimes. Like let Bannon loose on him, and it's just like, first of all, the guy looks half sickly. Not even to, if you look close at him, he needs to drink more water. He's obviously very dehydrated. You can see it right in his neck. You don't need to be. That had nothing to do. Listen, sometimes I do have my times where I get personal with people that I don't favor. So don't. I'm not above anything. Let's just get that clear. But but to see, I think why this is so interesting is because for a good 5 months, it looked like MAGA was like tight as can be. You know, it looked like they ran a very, very tight ship. Nobody, we're only letting loyalists in. We're only making sure that whoever is here, whoever's talking, we're talking the same language. And then to have the biggest guy go left, now we start to say, do we think this guy may become an enemy of MAGA? And if Steve Bannon is already unleashed, and Steve Bannon is like, well, let's deport the guy,
Yep.
are we able to rewind this whole thing? Because if I think if they're going to make peace, they're going to need to make peace pretty quickly. Because if they don't put some extinguisher on this fire, this thing could get real, real interesting today. You know, it get over the weekend. Like
This is the kind of thing that could explode, like you said, over the weekend. And we've seen it happen so often with this administration. Like when we get off the air, it's like big stuff starts happening on Friday afternoons and through the weekend.
We got two people that just love to talk and tweet. You know, Trump on
Exactly.
Elon on X.
Yep.
So it's kind of like you got these two people who just sitting over there and like, you know, did he say anything? Oh, he said that? So we could literally see a firestorm today, tomorrow.
Anytime, at any moment.
But now you did pull something up that there's reports that Elon Musk and President Trump are set up to talk.
Yeah, but Trump is playing it like he always does. Is like, yeah, he wants to talk, but I'm not sure I want to talk to him, you know, that sort of thing. And so he's always, you know, Trump always wants to be seen as the bigger person, the bigger guy, you know, he never kneels to anyone. Everybody always concedes to him. You know, that's another ego thing. So I think ultimately they will come together on some sort of at least tacit sort of truce. You know, like I said, two rich white guys, what do they really got to complain about? And so they will see that. I think ultimately that they are better served, you know, with each other, even if it's not, they're not buddy. At least they'll be. I think they'll work together to take over their evil plans for the world.
Does anyone watching think that this is a stunt? Do we have anybody in the audience, in the co-host audience, that thinks that this is a stunt? Before we move on, because I did see that, I was scrolling and somebody said, like, you know, these two guys, especially Trump, you know, Trump's an entertainer. So anybody pulling this is a hoax, this is planned for, but then if you ask that, what do they have to gain from this? They already had attention. They already had people's attention. Now you see Elon, he's asking, do we need to start a new political party? Is this a because what you see on X, if you look under Elon's post, is you see people who was against MAGA, now they're siding with him. So he seems to be more. He's attracting more attention as someone who seems to be more moderate than he has appeared to be over the last 6 months. He's appeared to be very much, hey, let's cut. And now he's seeing, hey, we're talking for the taxpayers. We're thinking about the taxpayer. We're thinking about the American citizens. And that's something that, I don't know. DCO Fly sis, good to see you, sis, checking in. Not a stunt. Elon's crashing out.
Listen, this is no, I don't think it's a stunt either. I don't think either of these guys are well. I'm still trying. I'm trying to be a kinder version of myself as I'm now aging. I don't think either of these guys really have the forethought thinking that. Now there may be people in their group who thought this could play out, but I don't think you can plan with Trump because he so often goes off script. He goes left in a matter of seconds. So I don't think this is something that could have been planned, because the wild card, of course, is Donald J. Trump and his ego. And he might, like you said, he might put something out on his Truth Network in the middle of the night, and nobody can control that. He rolls over, has a Big Mac at 3 a.m. and decides to start putting stuff out on Truth Social. Next thing you know, it's a firestorm by the time everybody wakes up in the morning.
Advisors knocking on the door.
Exactly. Mr. President, put the phone down, please. Anyway, so stay tuned, get your popcorn, because I'm sure that more is to come on this. And of course, we'll keep you attuned as well. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit because I can go into a story really about Ukraine and Russia, right? And this is just something I was watching the world news the other night, and my mouth was wide open as I saw the Ukrainians did like a Trojan horse. In Greek mythology, I guess it is. I'm not even going to try and attempt to recreate the story, because Greek mythology is not my jam. But there's a story of these people who gave a gift to their enemies, and inside the Trojan horse, which was the gift, was troops, and it was a sneak attack. So the Trojan horse becomes a analogy for that. Anyway, so the Ukrainians shipped these cargo containers over to Russia, and lo and behold, there is a retractable roof that allows drones to come out of them, and they attack with great precision. I think it was like 40 of Russia's, even some of them nuclear-enabled aircrafts, and just destroyed them. And it was, they say that the story says it took a year and a half, I think, for them to actually plan this attack and execute it. But it was amazing. It was amazing to see the precision. I mean, I was just, I don't know, maybe I'm just a nerd about this sort of thing.
I have the clip playing behind us, and as you watch it, it is just, it's something you want to just keep rewinding, because you can just tell, like, for you to get this close to your enemy's arsenal of planes, is just like, this had to be totally well planned and executed. And as you said, and as the articles on the story say, that this took up to a year and a half for them to plan this and execute it, to send, and here's a little image of what the actual drones look like coming in boxes.
Right.
They're coming in boxes with remote control removable tops. And the articles say that some of these drones they were literally $500 drones.
Right. Off the shelf. These are basically off the shelf drones.
taking out, multi-million dollar
Exactly.
fighter jets. So and Curtis, we were laughing because what was specifically said is they kind of made sure the United States did not know about this plane.
Listen, if you want to keep it a secret, don't tell anybody in this administration because it's going to get out. It's going to be in a signal chat or it's going to be somewhere. So.
Yeah. So they specifically made sure the United States didn't know about this. And, this is one for the little guy. This is a win for the little guy because
Absolutely.
this is a win for the underdog. Russia is so much larger than Ukraine, but then what this is showing is you can out strategize someone, and even if they're bigger than you. So I thought this was equally as amazing watching it.
Now, of course, Russia's not going to just stand still for this. So we can expect to see a lot of responses, some carnage. We've seen it, some bombings already. And Russia, unlike Ukraine, they're not as precise in who they attack. So they don't mind attacking civilian targets. Whereas the Ukrainians seem to have been far more exacting in who or what they attack, being careful not to actually make sure that they hit civilian targets and are killing innocent people. So, yeah.
And that's a good point you just made, because I had asked you, even when we were first talking about the story, I'm like, did you see that it was anyone killed? And it said they just took out,
they took out $1 million planes, right?
They took out equipment,
right?
Now, and this video that I'm sharing behind us now, we can see Russia responds with military drone attacks and kill at least 4 people.
Exactly.
Now, when you see kills at least 4 people, you didn't see 4 Ukrainian soldiers.
Right.
That's 4 people. Look, and you can see that, this side of this building that looks like people live there is basically blown out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't look like that was a targeted attack on Ukrainian soldiers. So it's just to your point, as soon as you said it, Russia has already responded with their, shotgun approach. We're just gonna try to take out a bunch of stuff. So, shout out to the Ukraine for being targeted and being, strategic and hitting where it hurts without, minimizing civilian casualties.
Yeah, actually, the German chancellor was in talking with Trump earlier this week, and he pointed out that fact that Ukraine was more precise and careful not to attack citizens, which is why Germany was supporting Ukraine. And he said that sitting in front of or next to Trump. So we'll see how that plays out. Of course, war is never pretty. And we're seeing the way warfare has evolved and here in 2025 with these drone attacks. So I think all of these major powers like Russia and the US are having to rethink what is an appropriate strategy for defending themselves. Because, we talked or touched on, Trump's idea about a big golden dome to keep us safe from, military strikes or missile strikes and that sort of thing. It seems to go back to the Ronald Reagan plan about the STAR system, whatever that system was. So, but we're seeing now in 2025, drone warfare, that sort of thing is use of technology and even like cyber attacks, that sort of thing. Those are the weapons that we're seeing evolve here in 2025. And if the superpowers of the world aren't aware of that or haven't evolved with the changing times, it could be difficult. They could have some military losses like we've seen recently in Russia.
And imagine this, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
In a world of cyber warfare, we have a person who's he's the Secretary of Defense who doesn't make sure the lines are secure in communication. Who just doesn't. I'm just saying, I'm critical of him in the position.
Right.
I'm just judging him based on how he does the job. You need to be the most calculated defense person. You're over all military and all defense of this country. And we can't make sure that a line is secure before we start discussing things twice already. So we got big tanks. We got big battleships and destroyers and aircraft carriers. Yeah, you're thinking that's how, but are you prepared for someone who's trying to shut down your power grid?
Exactly.
And that's the things you're discussing. It's not about the big fleets. I don't need 800,000 men on the battlefield if I have 800,000 drones. You know what I mean? So I can be a smaller country, invest into the right resources, and here you are with this big top-heavy military that is not as nimble and as agile as it should be in 2025.
Absolutely. And that's a great word, agile. So we got to be that in this changing scheme of how wars are conducted. And of course, I'm sure we will adjust. But,
Was that a hope?
I'm not sure of anything in this with this current administration. So we'll just wait and see. We will watch and pray, as the scripture says, because that's really all I can do at this point. But just moving on, they're back. The travel bans are back. So President Trump announced this week the new travel ban. Now, he had problems, if you may recall, in his first administration, where he tried to ban several countries, and he kept getting bounced back and forth from the courts, and eventually they found a version of the bill that worked. So now this is number 11, if you want to pull that up, is and in fact, I don't know, you probably have the picture here. He announced that there's 12 countries that are totally banned. And then there's an additional 7 countries that are kind of on a more highly scrutinized list of countries. So a total of 19. If you look at some of the names on the list, Afghanistan, obviously, Burma, Chad, Republic of the Congo. If you don't know, these most of these, other than Afghanistan that I've named, are Burma's, I guess, India. A lot of these are on the African continent. A lot of these are what are called the Middle East, like Iran and Afghanistan, of course. Haiti. What'd they do to us? That they are on a travel ban. But just anyway.
Just for existing.
I guess. Just for being bold enough to fight for their own freedom, I guess. But anyway, you can see the one thing that kind of combines all these is none of these are European countries. Let's just say it like that. They all tend to have a darker hued population. They all have their own tans. Let's put it that way. So
think Cuba has an interesting history with the United States.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of these. What is your looking at these countries, Curtis? This isn't that you can't travel as a U.S. citizen there and come back. This is okay. They can't come here, but is he saying you can't travel to these countries and come back?
I don't think that's the case. No, if you're an American citizen, or
but
if
they
you got,
can't. They just can't travel here
right,
at all.
right. That's my understanding of the way that the travel ban works. People originating from those. So I don't know how this. I guess if you have a passport from any one of these countries and you're trying to get to the U.S., you're screwed because you can't do it. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, the courts, I'm sure somebody will challenge it just because, and we'll see how that plays out. But it's just another. You knew it was coming because that was what he did in the first term, so you knew he was going to get back to it eventually. I just find it interesting that he's banning people from these countries. Now, if we go to story number 12 and juxtapose this, we remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about the fact that he had welcomed in, he being Trump, had welcomed in 59 farmers from South Africa, white farmers from South Africa, who he says were refugees and that they needed asylum here in the U.S. So he welcomed these people into the U.S. Now, fast forward a couple weeks into it, we find out that one of those people that he welcomed in, one of those refugees, less than a couple weeks after being here,
can't make this stuff up.
He kills his wife. It's sad. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make light of that tragedy, but these are the type of people. Imagine that these people had been offered asylum and they didn't look like that, right? Maybe they look like those people on the travel ban list. And imagine the hue and cry and what we would be hearing about the fact that some refugee came to America at the invitation of the president of the United States, and then less than a couple weeks later kills his wife. Can you imagine the media coverage? Can you imagine how this would be, how it would be pushed out over the various media outlets? Because I can't even imagine it.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought all the migrants coming here from the border, those were the killers and the drug killers and the murderers and the rapists.
You can't make this stuff up, my man.
These white people would. I didn't think them. Come on,
bringing these savages in here.
Right. So to your point, if we had saw migrants come from other countries on the president's decree, and within weeks one of them is a publicized murder, this would be everywhere.
Absolutely.
But that's why it's our job here at This Week in Black America to make sure that none of this stuff slips through the cracks.
Now, can you put that picture back up? Can you put the picture back up of the wife, please?
Yeah.
I just want to make a quick comment here before we move on. I mean, we don't spend a lot of time here. But, this is South Africa. A lot of race mixing. Now, if you look at the picture of that wife, it looks like somebody in the family might have been dipping, and she has a little bit more melanin. I mean, I don't know. I'm just supposing.
It's a hue there. There's definitely a hue.
There seems to be a little bit of a hue there that may have been a contributing factor to why this gentleman thought he needed to end the life of his wife. Again, I don't want to be seen as making light of it, but
of course.
It makes me wonder. It does make me wonder. And I definitely know that had this happened to another set of people, there would be a huge hue and cry about why we're letting these migrants come here and then have them commit crimes. I thought that was the whole thing behind why we were putting people out of the country. But
and I was trying to find some context to share, even though there's not much of any. But the Associated Press article here says that the ban does take effect Monday at midnight, well,
Right.
12:01 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it says some but not all 12 countries also wait, hang on. Trump, who signaled plans for a new ban upon taking office in January, appears to be on firmer ground this time. There will be heightened restrictions on visitors from Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
So these was, let me see, was that prior to the ban? Was that kind of the old? Some but not all 12 countries also appeared on this list of banned countries in Trump's first term.
Yes.
Okay, so the new ban includes,
these partial bans, I think, are the additional bans now.
Right. Okay, so
the more
this is
scrutinized
an elevation of things he had started. And so, yeah, I mean, forget it. Think about, people who are coming here to visit their families. You can't come. We got,
How are the Cubans feeling right now? Because we saw the Cubans for Trump and all that sort of thing. And I know we didn't discuss it, but he just a couple weeks ago, removed the protections for those who came here from Cuba. So a lot of those people that probably voted for him in Florida, they might be getting scrutinized for deportation back to Cuba now. And I wonder how they're feeling about this find out moment.
Wow.
So anyway.
We'll leave that one there because that's a wow.
We'll let that one sit there and marinate for a while. And I don't know. Let's just go let's go stateside for a minute, because I want to get into this, and I know you probably have some thoughts that I want to hear. Number 10 is talking about what we know about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we did a show on our Hello Black America platform that just highlighted all the towns that have been destroyed. One of the premier ones is obviously Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the Greenwood section, which is known as Black Wall Street, destroyed in 1921 when a rumor started about some sort of, I think it was a rape or somebody looking at somebody wrong, something, and caused an attack on the wealthy part of the town in the Greenwood section of Tulsa. Fast forward 100 years, plus a little bit more than 100 years, and Tulsa elects its first black mayor. Do you have his name there? Nolan?
Nichols. Monroe Nichols.
Monroe, I'm sorry. Yes. Monroe Nichols. So he proposed a $100 million reparation plan. Just let me say off the bat, this reparation plan does not include any direct payments to anybody. So it's not a cash outlay. What it is more of a housing subsidy and an educational subsidy, and about 60 million of it, I think, was actually to do like infrastructure repairs to the Greenwood section of Tulsa. So no direct payments. There, I mean, yeah, well, that's the part everybody wants to hear. They don't deserve no cash. So okay, and I don't want to get too far left on that. But what do you think, first of all, on the Tulsa mayor putting forth a reparations plan? I mean, shortly after being elected in his first term.
I'm going to repeat the words you just said. No direct payments.
Right.
And no direct payments. There are two living descendants.
Two of them still alive today.
Of those who, and I believe, Curtis, aren't they either late 90s or close?
No, they're both in their hundreds. They're both
over 100.
They're both over 100.
It was 1921.
Yes.
That's right. It was 1921.
I think one of them was like 7 at the time, and the other was maybe like 3 or 4. So they're into their 100s now, like well into, not like 100 plus a couple minutes. They're 100.
I feel like once you break 101, you're well into your 100.
Absolutely.
You know.
Listen, I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. You know, Betty White was like, I just want to make it to 100. She didn't make
Listen,
it. You know what I mean? Like 99. It's like once you get 100, it's like, shoot, but I'm well into 100 at 101. But
I knew a woman that was born in 1900 and died in 2006. So, I knew her a great part of that time. And yeah, I mean, once you get, it's like 100. So she was 106 years old. I'm like, you well into.
you are well. You've been in your hundreds for years. You know?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've been in my hundreds for years. I don't care. So, like, to have no direct payments to them, even that takes all the excitement away from it for me. And then the way he's setting it up as this like trust where it's really for the rebuilding and the development and preservation of the Greenwood district.
Right.
So about 300 homes were destroyed.
Right.
300 homes and 300 people were killed. 35 blocks destroyed. 35 blocks absolutely destroyed. So when we look at rebuilding that without giving it to the descendants, what are you rebuilding it for? To rent out, to sell, to what? If we're not, what is it going to be, a 35 block museum? No. We know that's not going to be the case. We're not going to build this into the world's largest historic district. Nothing's for sale, guys, but you can go look at it. No, it seems like, and I could be wrong, but when I read into it, if you're not giving cash cash payments to the descendants, there's no payouts to the descendants alive, and you're just looking to create something to rebuild what was destroyed without attaching it to them. Where are we going with this, Curtis? What is the outcome we're trying to get to?
No, I agree with you on the fact that it is a little disconcerting that there are two people who are alive today that basically still get nothing. So that I think that is problematic. I do, on the other hand, though, applaud the mayor for trying to do something with it. That's with it. So this is something that he doesn't need city council approval on.
Do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
Don't do me no favors. That's what comes to mind. Hey guys, well look, I got an idea. I want to do something. I'm doing something. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm just playing.
Listen, I mean, I get that sentiment. I do, but
now I gotta look at it all be rebuilt.
Yeah.
And I ain't getting nothing.
It's baby steps. You got to start somewhere, right?
Go ahead.
I mean, that's the only thing. I know it's not perfect, but if we wait for perfection, we would get nothing, because clearly we got to start somewhere. And if this is something that starts to rebuild that community, and the history of that community continues to evolve, people understand that, perhaps there'll be a mind towards extending those reparations further, or somehow even getting some direct payments at some point. I think you got to start somewhere.
Well, what happens if it's being rebuilt? It's now
gentrified.
Trust. Took the word right out my mouth.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
now,
that's something you need to be concerned about.
We buy it all up.
Yep.
50 years from now, if we're here, nobody ever remembers that whole what happened here. Because there was no effort to preserve. I mean, I would rather you, if you're going to do $100+ million trust, turn it into a 35 block historic district where no one can buy it. At least then you've preserved it, and 50 years from now, y'all going to come and see this district that we rebuilt. It's a museum. You can charge people to come through it. Maybe it generates some type of, but if it's going to eventually be on the market for people to buy, that's a very dangerous outcome, because we know what people with deep pockets, can do. And then if it's public, who's to say that it's, the administration won't say, we're not going to allow any that history, certain histories, they're not a fan of being taught right now. So I just see if this mayor, as good as I love the fact that he does have the fortitude to want to do something, but he also needs to realize that this can get away from him real quick, and then it can turn into a mess in 5-10 years if he doesn't protect this. If he doesn't have the heart to protect this moving forward, obviously we're going to follow the story and see if this goes anywhere. But I don't. Why inflict any more pain on people who have already gotten nothing, and then see that you're rebuilding everything that they was destroyed, that was taken from them? But y'all can walk through. Y'all get a free ticket to walk through. What do they get? So I'm always and I think we're both on that same page.
Absolutely.
So I think we both have a heart for the living descendants who survived. So you would think that it would just be some type of connection to them if they're doing $100 million reparations plan. Why does it say reparations? Take the reparations word out. It's $100 rebuild. It's $100 restoration.
There you go. Okay, restoration plan. That's true.
Don't call it a reparations plan.
Well, in their mind, I think he's saying that he is repairing some of the damage. I guess is his thinking, is that he is repairing some of the damage. It isn't, to your point, though, it's not what we think of traditionally as traditional reparations, or when you think of the word reparations, this isn't exactly what you would normally think of. So maybe a little bit of a misnomer, but again, we'll keep an eye on the story, because it's important that I think it's important that somebody's at least making some sort of step towards this, at least to start the conversation, and or continue the conversation, because the conversation's been started. But anyway, we'll talk about that more. Now, moving into I want to get into the exploration of the big beautiful bill, but before we do that, just want to, we're talking a lot about these billionaires and their activity. One billionaire that has kind of been consistent in this is Bill Gates. And what he's been consistent in is his effort to actually give a significant portion of his money, his fortune, away to those who are less fortunate. Different things he's doing through the Gates Foundation and that sort of thing. And he has vowed to give away 99% of his fortune over the next, I think it was over the next 20 years. So that's approximately $200 billion. And I think it's down now, probably because the market's down a little bit. But $200 billion is his estimated worth. And he says he's going to give most of that away to the continent of Africa, primarily to support governments that are doing things. He's trying to fill in the gap, I think, that's been left by the carnage that's been laid by the Doge and the cuts that they've made. He's really making concerted effort to use his money to kind of build, to kind of reinvest in the people. And he's making a significant more portion of that reinvestment on the continent of Africa. We don't spend a lot of time there, but what are your thoughts on old BG giving this money away to the folks in Africa?
Well, I think he's lying.
Ooh. Why you say that? Has his record been consistent?
Hey, check this out. Rich guy. Later in my life, I'm gonna start really giving away some money to some people. You rich already. What are you doing right now?
Well, he's doing that now. He's consistently, he's giving a lot of money away. He's, even as we speak, he's always been giving a lot of money away. So
now here's the thing with Bill Gates. In my opinion on Bill Gates, you have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You could, you're also someone who spoke against too many people in the population. So he's spoken about needing to depopulate?
True.
Depopulate.
Mm-hmm.
Publicly, he says, in fact, if I can find it, he's publicly spoken about that. Now, when we look at his being in Africa, I could see Bill Gates has been involved with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the IMF, and the World Bank. He has been very much boots on the ground globally in these countries. Every single one of them have been destabilized. Every single one of them. So here's one of the richest guys in the world, was the richest person in the world at one point. And you've been on the ground with billions of dollars for over 10, 15 years, and it's still a mess over there. Where now the cuts that we hear to U.S. aid that were funding treatment of the HIV virus, that is really affecting people because they don't have the medicine for the HIV virus that they needed, that they were getting through the U.S. aid funding. But you've been there. How much were you giving? How much? Like, it's not swooping down because U.S. aid has been cut, and here comes Bill Gates, and he's going to come with his own checkbook. Hey, how much did y'all need? He's been there.
Right.
So my thing is, what is the result you have gotten? And if you're vowing to give $200 billion away of your wealth, how much, what has, I'd like to do a follow-up story to this. Okay. What has Bill Gates actually done for Africa if it to make it not look like he's a plant there with a different agenda? Because if you're coming in to give money, the Bible says give freely. It shouldn't be, we should be able to go into whole cities in Africa that is like, Bill Gates, that's how much he's changing things. It doesn't take more than a couple dollars from Bill Gates to actually change an entire small region of Bill Gates. He should be able to walk in. $200 billion, Curtis. Mm-hmm. Bill Gates should be able to fly into Africa, and the whole country that he's coming to greets him with a welcome party. This is how much this man is changing and keeping us alive and doing the things here. Now, again, I might be just uninformed on this, but I just don't see him as somebody who is made a huge difference.
Okay. Listen, we can explore the Bill Gates. Now, you know, and admittedly, I mean, I've only followed him at a distance. I'm not a Bill Gates fan or anything by that, but I have heard over time that, you know, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that he has been doing some good things. But we'll get into it a little bit more. Let's take a look. That's something we can definitely take a look at and see, you know, if the media coverage matches the real thing. I will say that, you know, the fact that you mentioned about every country that he's in is already destable, same can be said about the U.S. You know, every government, every country we go into ends up being destabilized for whatever reason, and then, you know, whatever happens after that happens. But we'll keep an eye on it.
They take those, they call it I think it's called the wealth pledge. Warren Buffett's taking it. It's a vow. They're trying to be Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie got all of this money. He sold U.S. Steel, and he said, listen, there's nothing here. And he vowed to give all the money away. And he built a ton of libraries and a ton of hospitals and a ton of things that really matter today.
Right.
When I look at what these guys, like Andrew Carnegie was trying actively while he had all of that money to give it away. Like, it was very much, he's putting stuff up, he's developing stuff, he's building, you know, Carnegie Hall. Like he's doing things to invest into people and the arts and legacy and library and learning. Can anyone tell us what Bill Gates has done in Africa?
Well, we could be. Let's. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt in that it could be that he just doesn't have the appetite for naming these things that he's doing after himself, as Carnegie did. You know, and so he could be the guy that's just doing it quietly. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So without looking into it further, I'm not going to cast any aspersions on him. And so, you know, because there are people that do these good things and you never hear about them, right? And if you don't hear about them, that doesn't negate, in my mind, doesn't negate the good that they've done. So that's something I think we ought to just look into a little bit more.
They heard about Jesus even when he said, "Don't tell nobody."
That is true. But that's because people didn't actually do that. They went and told. They went and told anyway.
Stuff is going on. Who is doing this? The word gets out.
That is true.
You ain't gonna put $1 billion into a poor country to develop hospitals. Who's done this? Anyway, but that's a good point. To your point, that's a good point. Let's wait and see, because at this point he's stepping up. Like, hey, I'm about to be a huge part of helping keep Africa running. So we will follow up. We'll follow up.
Absolutely. Sure. So one more kind of, I don't want to say serious, but one more conversation I wanted to devote a little bit more time to. We're actually doing pretty good on time because the rest of this stuff is quick hitters. But I think, the big beautiful bill, we've talked about it before, that Trump is pushing. I was very clear that I thought the bill is immoral. I think that it is. I think it's a sacrilege. I hate it. I don't like the bill. I think it, in this time, if you were adding to the defense budget at the same time that you are withholding services and cutting people off the Medicare or Medicaid rolls, reducing the expense, reducing the things that help the least of us, I think that's immoral and problematic. And even I hate to be agreeing with Musk, but of course he called it an abomination, a disgusting abomination. And I have to agree with that characterization. If he and I don't agree on anything else, we agree on that. And we may have different reasons for calling it a disgusting abomination. But the reason I bring it up is because the Congressional Budget Office, which, if you don't know, the Congressional Budget Office is a nonpartisan agency within the Congress that actually provides this sort of independent, objective analysis of budgetary and economic issues in support of the legislative process. So they actually go into, nonpartisan group, they actually go into how the cost of legislation are going to actually play out. The economic forecast based on what the thing goes, the legislation goes. So that's their job. CBO, Congressional Budget Office, their job is to evaluate these sort of things. So their evaluation of the big beautiful bill is that it's going to actually increase federal debt. These are just the big bullet points. It's going to actually increase the federal deficit by $2.4 trillion. That's a T, trillion dollars. And that includes about 551 billion in additional debt service. Remember, we talked about the Moody's rating being stripped the other day, or a couple weeks ago when we were together.
Yeah.
We talked about the Moody's rating going from AAA down to AA1.
Yeah.
This is where you see that. So they're paying over $500 billion in debt service, and part of that is because of this reduced credit rating that we saw with Moody's doing. So that's the practical. I just want to tie that together for people. If you don't realize it, that's where you see that play out.
The interest that you pay.
Exactly. So that's over $500 billion we're paying just to pay the debt service, the interest on the debt, the VIG, as the mob might call it. So yeah, that's that. The other part of this is that it's projected that 10.9 million people,
this is scary,
would lose their insurance under this under this law, this bill. That's 11 million people who become uninsured. Now, if you believe the smokescreen about the work requirement for Medicaid, and that's what part of this is all about. And I've seen studies. What's his name? Reich. He was a former administrator. He was in the administration. I think it was in the Obama administration. But yes, I think that's his name. I just see a lot of his stuff on social media, and he kind of did the thing on the fact that this is a smokescreen about having people work, because 60+%, 64%, I think it was, of people who are on Medicaid work now, today. That is the majority of the people on. So the other people that can't are either disabled, or they have primary caregiving responsibilities, so they can't work, that sort of thing. There are some odds and ends that make up the smaller portion of that, but most of the people work. So why are you putting a work requirement when most of the people already work? So I know another smokescreen. It's going to increase the debt. It's going to increase the deficit. It's going to kick people off of Medicare or Medicaid, off of their insurance.
SNAP benefits.
SNAP benefits. So all
and
of this.
It didn't even list an amount. That was the scariest thing. It didn't even list an amount. It just said less money for SNAP. What that could be.
We don't even know.
We don't even know.
Exactly.
They could cut it by 99%.
So the bottom line, I mean, we talked about the bill before. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but this is now a nonpartisan group whose sole job is to evaluate these bills, and they have determined what we already knew to be the case, is that this is a bad bill. It's a problem. Did you see, I didn't even have this on the list, but I was so angry. Well, not really angry, fake angry. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the lady from Georgia who's a representative. She actually admitted in public that she didn't read the bill. She said, I would have never signed the bill if I'd have known that it had the provision for, I forgot which provision it was. But to me, you stop talking after I didn't read the bill. Are you kidding me? You're a congressperson. You got a staff that can read it for you and just give you the highlights. And you're telling the public, the people who elected you, that you didn't read the bill? Are you kidding me? I'm sorry.
No.
Are you kidding me?
And that's fake angry. Curtis ain't really angry.
No, I'm really angry about that. That's real anger there. Because you get elected to represent the people. She just admitted to basically stealing money from the American people, because all she's doing is sitting in a seat and not doing her job. Anybody else would get fired for it. But she's a congressperson. She gets to increase her wealth, insider trading. Look at how much money she's made since she's been in office. And I don't begrudge anybody making money. But if you get to set the rules and take advantage of the rules and make all this money, and you're not even doing the job for which you were hired, it is a problem.
That's everything you just said was great points, because when we first reported on the bill, it had just been announced. It had just passed the House. A lot more details have come out. And I think what a lot of people need to ask who are supporting the bill is, why would I be supporting a bill if one of the champions of the MAGA party, who's one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, does not support the bill? Somebody who you say you wanted in the name of government efficiency, reducing waste, and reducing spending. in the name, somebody you say you supported the efforts to cut, somebody you say you like him as a businessman. So he's not some Joe Schmo looking at this and not able to really decipher it. And he's totally against it. He's saying it's going to increase the deficit. And then when we look at, as Curtis just reported on this American Press article from the Congressional Budget Committee, that this is absolutely going to lead to a higher debt, and the benefits that are being advertised don't seem to outweigh any of the bad. Because as it was, we talked about how, there's a couple provisions in there that would give a higher, a greater exemption, and a $500 additional tax credit, I believe, from $2,000 to $2,500. But those small things, they pale in comparison to the actual damage that's going to happen to people who don't even know that they're on the list, that are not going to be able to have 10 million people. So these are two sides. And again, I'm not a person that agrees with Elon Musk on almost anything at all either. We are very critical. We've both been very critical of several things, and then his philosophies on things. But I think that's where being objective comes in at. If you can't say to someone that you disagree with, hey, we actually agree on this, then you're just biased, and you're biased to the point where you're blind now. So I think we got to really consider that if he's saying this is a bad bill for the budget of the country, and then they've looked deeper into it and said, well, let's talk about who's going to be affected, since people who are talking big game and big push this through aren't even reading the bill, then let us do a little bit more digging for you to let you see who's going to be affected. And so again, but it goes back to my hypothesis, which is hold on, and good to see you, Spiker Han checking in. Good to see you, Stacey Bryce Adams. This is simple. It's two white men fighting. Oh, you must be watching a little bit of the clip from earlier. Sometimes people will watch, they'll come on and they're a little behind. But anyway, it goes back to my hypothesis, which is we are not looking to control spending. And if we're looking to, and we don't care about anyone who's not rich.
Right.
So if you don't have people who are fighting for people who are not rich, we're going to continually see policy rolled out that affects who we call here the least of us. Because if you're looking for policy to be passed that is, hey, this one's for us, then you can easily be deceived because you don't understand that the policy being passed is they're not for you. And this is going to be, if this goes, this is going to be a painful one right here.
Absolutely.
If this goes and gets passed somehow, Senator Cory Booker says he's going to do a post every day highlighting something in this bill that is going to negatively affect most Americans. He said, I believe, what's the day that they're supposed to, vote on this bill, Curtis?
I don't know, because the Senate has to do their thing, and then I think it actually has to go back and do this reconciliation thing where they kind of combine the two portions of the bill before it can go to the president's desk for signature. So I don't know that there's still stuff to do. Now there is a majority. Yeah. There is a majority. So if you can convince the Republicans to all vote for it, then it's going to happen. But that's the case, is that some Republicans are realizing the political capital that they would have to expend to get this to go through. And I guess they're trying to evaluate whether it's worth it or not. or
so we basically need a John McCain moment then.
Yep, that is exactly it. We need somebody on the Republican side to stand up and say what we know, that this is immoral, that this is a bad bill, that it is going to disproportionately affect those who we identify as the least of us. And that is not something we should be doing in the so-called richest country in the world. So that's just, that's my opinion.
No, that's a good breakdown. And for those who may not be familiar with, when Curtis lays out, because again, some of us are not as, and admittedly, I'm still learning the politics of how the Congress and the Senate and the House, how these things work. But when the Senate majority is Republican, they control the House. They control the Senate as well. Mm-hmm. So once the bill has passed through the House, now we need the Senate to vote. And if the Senate votes in majority favor of the bill, then we're pretty much there, right?
Yeah, but the thing is that they're never going to agree with the exact version of the bill that was sent from the Congress. So there's always going to be a period where they're going to pass their version of the bill. There's this time of reconciliation where they basically they bring they bring the differences together and somehow combine them to make a combined bill, if you will, that takes the parts out of both of them. That's what ends up getting voted on once they reconcile those two bills. So we'll see how it plays out. Keep pressure on your Congress people. I mean, specifically on your senators right now. So in New Jersey, it's Cory Booker and Andy Kim. So both of obviously are Democratic senators in New Jersey. So I would suspect that both of them are not supporting this bill. But heck, call senators from other states, though not necessarily your state. Make it known that this is not something that you support. That's important for people to make their voices known, because that seems to be the only thing that these people are responding to with any kind of. They're not even listening to the courts. So it's when the people respond is that they seem to. That's when they get worried. So keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a big one. Yeah. So we'll keep you guys up to breast with what happens with this bill, because President Trump's goal is to have it passed by early July 9th, July 7th, something like that. So we'll see if that happens.
Well, keep in mind, they're still doing, just kind of sparked something when you said that. They're still trying to do a parade for a military parade for under the guise of the 250th celebration, and also for Trump's birthday. So keep an eye on that. Oh my goodness, you can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up. If you were an alien and you came in and just saw what was going on now, you would be like, what? What? These are supposedly intelligent beings? Are you kidding? Anyway.
Good.
Let's get into some quick hitters here. Haiti, the only freed society to ever successfully free themselves from enslavement. The country of Haiti, they've obviously been having some problems lately with gangs and things like that. And I believe it's Kenya has been taking the lead in trying to help Haiti deal with the different gang problems that they're having in the capital, which I guess is Port-au-Prince there in Haiti. So Haiti just signed an agreement with Eric Prince, who's a military contractor. If the name doesn't mean anything to you, maybe the name Blackwater will bring that back to your consciousness. So Eric Prince is one of those military contractors. He's most notably associated with Blackwater, and he's supposedly going to be bringing like 150 to 200 people in, as well as providing some sort of drone coverage to help the capital of Haiti to deal with the gang problem that they're having over there now. So that we unfortunately we don't get a lot of news about Haiti. I was just thinking, we talked about maybe we've talked about having our people go back to the continent of Africa. We've talked about supporting some of those freed Black communities in the Caribbean and things like that. Haiti seems like the no-brainer because this is the one freed country that should be, I think, held up as the pinnacle example of what can happen. And instead, we continue to see that Haiti is just still seen as an S-hole country, like our president called it a few years back. I don't know. It just seems like we as a people, as a diaspora, would probably be doing a better job of supporting Haiti. But I think in a lot of ways, we've succumbed to the negative messages that we've gotten about them over the years. And we probably believe they're an S-hole country as well, in some instances.
I think our mechanisms aren't set up to invest in these countries the way they should be, because because we have tons of countries that we know are incredible countries, and we know Haiti's an incredible country. But I just mean, if you take Caribbean countries, if you take certain, and we're not investing in building there and investing in seeing returns. So I think it's more the mechanisms. But don't get me wrong, the narrative has been effective.
Absolutely.
The narrative has been effective in keeping people afraid and keeping people judgmental.
Not to mention people like the Clintons stealing from the people of Haiti when they.
When we look at from a natural resource standpoint, I've been speaking with our brothers because as we've had conversations about building the infrastructure to have us invest in these countries, I get a lot of intel from people who are from these countries, and a lot of them are telling me how deep the ties go to government corruption. And right now, there's an Egyptian guy over there. The Egyptians run it, and they're not. These are modern Egyptians. These aren't the Egyptians that you see, that built pyramids. Like these are. I'm Egyptian by DNA. Like these ain't my fathers. These are guys who are, from either Turks or old conquering societies, Arabs that came, and now they're running the show over here in Haiti. And they have a lot of political influence, and nothing goes without them saying go. And and this comes to sometimes to your point, you could be corrupt, but you don't want your face to be seen. So now you got the backdoor person, so this is why we see some of these deals being made over in these other countries that the US has made over the last 30 years. And next thing you know, this person's over here in this country, but they're really siphoning money back to the US and the Clintons, and because if we just come there and then they see that we're not doing anything for the country, it's going to look like we're just robbing the country. So, but I think Haiti is, first of all, it's the largest in terms of mass. The natural resources in Haiti are incredible. From iridium to I believe copper, bauxite, like you're talking mangoes. Because we really don't understand, and I'm not gonna paint a broad stroke with this, but we really have not been taught how important food security is.
Absolutely.
And for a country, there are certain things where if you're importing your food, your vegetables, your fruit, that's not good. But if we can control a country that we import or we take their stuff, this is huge. But when you start looking at all of these natural resources and the rich soil that Haiti, if properly invested in, when properly invested in, they have everything they need right there to not just sustain the country, but actually to import trillions through the world. So, I mean, we go back to Captain Traore, Ibrahim Traore. It's that model.
Yeah. He's
teaching a model that, if followed, everyone will be successful with.
Thank you.
You always say it. We are going to keep Captain Traore's name.
That's what I was thanking you for. Just for bringing. We didn't have a story on him today, so thank you for just uttering his name publicly today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for putting that out in the ether. Like, we are going, and that's unintentional but purposeful. Like, that's the model. So if every country, the reason why he's a threat, it's several reasons. But it's the models that he's seeing, that he's teaching to other countries, that, hey, you have enough on your home soil to cultivate it. First of all, you got to realize what's already leaving your soil and cut it off, stop the bleeding. So, hey, how much copper is leaving Haiti? Man, we shipped out about 400 billion in copper last year. All right, how much did we make on it? Okay, so now we cut that. And that's how you get rich quick. You start to bring money back quick to your country. We see these huge numbers that Captain Traore is bringing in. It's a different report every 2-3 weeks. He's doing free college now. He's building this plant, building this. He just bought a fleet of new military equipment. He's got the electric car that they developed. When you cut off the hundreds of billions of dollars that's leaving your country every 3 months, and you start to see, all right, now we got money, what can we do with it? This is an example. And I think, again, my prayer is over the next 2 years, 3 years, we look at what they're doing over there, and then we can see that coming to Haiti. But now, what position do the gangs play? Because this gentleman, to this story, Eric Prince, he's coming in as a defense contractor to essentially go to war with these gangs. I saw that they were talking about, drones, investing in drones.
Right.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, I heard the gangs out there control it so bad they don't even let the planes come into the country.
Right. They shoot the planes. They got to get. Listen, you can't have any semblance of order until you can get some kind of control, and you can't have anarchy. I mean, listen, we can argue about what kind of structure needs to be there, but there needs to be some kind of structure. Can't have people shooting in the street at planes coming in. So, my prayer for the country is that they get somebody who has a heart for their people, like an Ibrahim Traore that we see in Burkina Faso, somebody that arises. The problem is, of course, is that every time that happens, the U.S. and the Western allies end up destabilizing these people for their own interests. So I hope that we take more of a laissez-faire approach and leave these countries to their own devices, let them grow and develop on their own without us interjecting our own agenda into those situations. So again, there are things going on around the world that you just need to be aware of. Keep your eyes open, stay woke, as I like to continue to say. There was something that you mentioned though during that your conversation. I just wonder, did you hear? It was in the news this week. There were Chinese. I don't know how we would class. They were Chinese immigrants or people coming here from China who were busted, I think, up in Massachusetts with a fungus that supposedly could destabilize our food supply. That is scary. It's like it's a fungus that would basically, like the boll weevil would wipe out the crops back in the 1900s, early 1900s, and so there was a fungus that had been brought into the country. I don't know how the authorities were able to suss out these things, but it's scary times that we live in because
they were trying to smuggle it in.
They got it into the country, but they got busted when they got here.
Oh.
So that's some scary stuff. Imagine if something like that does get into the food supply. You don't realize that we take it for granted here because you can go to a store anywhere within 5 minutes, most of us, and go to a store and buy basically whatever you want. But that stuff grows, or is supposed to grow someplace. And if you interrupt that, we've got a real problem. You talk about famine and we talk about plagues in the Bible time. If you can't, how long does it take for society to devolve into anarchy when people don't have food to eat?
Wow.
Like when nobody has food to eat, you want to see violence in the streets? That's when you're going to see it. And it doesn't take long because most people need to eat. No, most people are not fasting 40 days like Jesus did for any reason, right? So you go 2-3 days without eating, what's going to be the next step? You might go get that Nina and start, somebody who got some food might have to give some of it up.
Bonita always comes with the right hook, uppercut comments. That's what they caught. Imagine what they have not caught.
That is true. That's why it's so scary.
Because as you were saying that, I didn't know if you were saying that two people came in and they had this, fungus or something like, not like, I don't know. I was looking at like a virus. I thought you were saying that, two people came in with us like they were sick, like a COVID.
No.
I didn't know as I looked it up. I'm like, wait, they're trying to smuggle a fungus in to actually poison the food supply?
That's it. There you go.
Wow. So and that's when the thought came to my mind, like, whoa, how many? So this was two people. Are they catching everyone? Yeah. And all they need to not catch is one person. That's
just it. You only need one person to get through.
Now listen. This is where you want secure borders. So this is where you want not just secure borders, but secure, customs rather, to make sure, because quite honestly, when I came from my trip last week, I was coming into the country and I'm looking and I'm just like, listen, there's a lot of people in here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. Are y'all,
you're getting everybody.
You're getting everybody. And here's the thing. You really got to get everybody. You can't have one joker slip through.
That's just it.
Got him. You're in trouble. So that just goes to show how important national security is. And wow. So that's a good point. Wow. Two people caught with a fungus and Jesus. Strange times, boy. Like you said, Curtis, these are things we take for granted.
Absolutely. You
know what I'm saying? You don't. And shout out to the people who do defend us, who wake up every day and that's their job, is to defend us from threats, foreign and abroad. But I mean, domestic and abroad. But Jesus.
Yeah. So I'm going to tie this into 17 because, Jamal Bryant, the pastor down in the Atlanta area, who had spearheaded the Target protest, is actually now turning his guys to Dollar General. And he said Dollar General is next. And it's a little different. It kind of ties back to the last thing we were talking about. They're pointing now, Dollar General, I don't know if they have a lot of these in your area. Not a lot in my area either. But down where my mom and my sister live in Georgia and some of those southern states, you can't throw a rock without hitting a Dollar General. And it's like Dollar General becomes the primary. It's like the bodega in New York City.
Definitely.
Every block or two, there is a Dollar General. And Jamal Bryant is now taking aim at them because 90+% of what they bring into our community is processed stuff. They're adding to the food desert. Even though you have a place where you can go buy some food in a Dollar General, it's all processed stuff that's not good for our health. So again, we continue to see the continuation of things that are not good for our people. And so he's taking aim. This is the easiest boycott ever for me. I can guarantee you're not going to see me in a Dollar General. Now, if I'm in Georgia, I might have and I'm visiting mom or something, and I might have to go get something, I guess it's possible that I could wander into a Dollar General. But to me, this is the easiest boycott of all time because we don't have to deal with that. But that's the reason why he's taking taking aim at Dollar General. I shouldn't say Target because they still having problems because of the boycott that's been perpetrated against them as well. So
and I'm curious. I saw that Dollar General has had some DEI rollback. Has it been as have they been as vocal? Has it been Target? Has it did they roll back DEI like Target? Because quite honestly,
no.
I
They
don't
never had it. They never. Just to be clear,
right.
this is a different thing.
I don't see a large percentage of Dollar General workers being African American or Black.
So whereas Target was aimed at because they forsook us. They embraced us, but then they're like, nah, we gonna back away from y'all. Dollar General has never embraced us. They've always been detrimental to us, but now we're taking aim at them.
Pastor Jamal Bryant have like a bad run-in with a Dollar General employees? Was you in West Virginia somewhere and you just said, hey, listen, are you sure you want to do this? You don't know the type of power I have.
Yeah.
Listen, that's a joke, but realistically, I was a little surprised by this one because you're trying to rally Black people to stop purchasing from a place that is very local. They have tons of stores.
Right.
But if it's for health reasons, then why don't you have this same energy against McDonald's?
Well,
which has rolled back DEI policies, and we know Black kids and Black Americans eat at McDonald's. What's the Dollar General just surprised me. I didn't see where it was coming from.
Well, again, I think it's probably a local guy. He sees Dollar General as more of a problem because there are myriad Dollar Generals where he lives. You and I don't think about it in the same terms because we could ride for miles and miles and not see a Dollar General. So I don't know. Maybe it's just that a
Dollar General.
Yes.
What type of quality food do I think I'm gonna get at Dollar General?
Well, if you have no other choice, bro, that's what they're going.
That's what I'm
that's
saying.
The problem.
Though.
And that's what he's taking aim at.
Okay,
is that you are in our communities and you are giving us stuff that is not good for us. That I think is where he comes down on this. It's like you can't be this prevalent in our hood and not give us something better.
But why not McDonald's? Where is Dollar General? I get it because that's a slippery slope. If it's health reasons, if it's Target was very clear. A ton of you shop here, and we are now no longer, going to have, diversity, equity, and inclusion in our culture.
So what's worse? If you say this is the conundrum. If you say we embrace it, but now we're not going to embrace it, or you've never embraced it and we've just been taking advantage of you all these years. I mean, it's just a matter of now he's turning his focus onto them. Maybe he did have a bad experience in Dollar General. I don't know, but I'm just reporting.
I ain't got a dog in the fight. I see a Dollar General once every 18 months. Like you said, if I ever ran into him, hey, are you with the Dollar General boycott? Yes, I am.
I got you.
How much money have you given the Dollar General in the last 18 months?
Nothing. Not a dime. I have been very supportive. Oh my goodness. Anyway, a couple more quick things here we need to get to. Well, all of you folks that didn't get to see Sinners, it's now available. You can stream it at home. I am disavowing any spoiler alerts at this point. The movie's been out long enough for you to have seen it. You can actually see it at home. So if you want to spend the money to stream it in your homes, you can do that. Great movie. We talked a couple weeks ago about the records that it's breaking. So continue to support our people, and you will be entertained. I think it's worth whatever money you put into see that movie is worthwhile, and it sends a message. Couple other things you said. Now Pete Hegseth, who ironically still has a job, but he's faded into the background now. He's talking about has already stripped the names off these Navy ships. He stripped Harvey, I think his name Harvey Milk, who was a politician, a gay politician, San Francisco area in the 70s, I believe. And his name was on one of those naval ships. And at the beginning of Pride Month again, Hegseth decides to tell the world that he's going to strip Harvey Milk's name off this Navy ship. And apparently he's considering stripping other names off of naval ships as well, including Harriet Tubman, Thurgood Marshall, and other prominent Black leaders, including Medgar Evers and others, whose name I think are on ships. And he's thinking about stripping those off. For me, this is just another way to try and get Black folks riled up, I think. But what are your thoughts on our esteemed head of I can't even say it with a straight face. Hegseth deciding that maybe he needs to take some names off these ships.
I was in DC, and they told me that the street along the White House that had Black Lives Matter painted onto it, they actually ripped the entire street up and put a new street down.
Correct.
The reason why that comes to mind right now is because we're paying money to do something that doesn't need to be done. And if we are paying money to do it, it shows a different motive. Because if the name's on the ship, what's the reason? It's not like, all the ships are due for a renovation.
Right.
So what we decided to do was, during the renovation, the repaint, we just didn't want to put the resources into repainting them with Harriet Tubman or whatever. That's different.
Yeah.
But when you actually are using resources to remove names and say, well, in the case of the DC street, painting over it wasn't good enough. Some say the administration didn't even want to know that those words were underneath that layer of paint. just knowing that those words were under that paint spiritually, it'd be like at night our ancestors' souls would be like tormenting them. We're still here. So they said, no, we gotta dig up the whole street. We're gonna spend lots of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, dig up the whole street. This is, again, I think it goes back to your point, to get us riled up. The goal, I think, for him is evil. It's to try to wipe away a history. It's to try to, hey, 50 years from now, and the way he may be moving, he might feel like, listen, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, my grandkids won't ever know that this person's name was even here. And I think that's the way he thinks about it. You're trying to continually write history your way, which is what the West loves to do. They love to write the history, create the narrative, and then try to make the truth, not the narrative. But that's just, we're too smart now. It's too many cameras, too many people got social media, too many people are reading. You're not able to do this. You just look crazy because it's like you're moving like it's 1920. but it's not 1920. It's 100 years later, and everyone can see what you're doing.
We can see you. You know, we can see you, right?
You know, we can
see you. Anyway,
yes. So, you know, that's you're in the history books. When we look back over what Pete Hegseth did, this is something that's on your record. You got a record, buddy. It's and it ain't a good one.
No, absolutely.
there's no general that even you admire that would look at you and be like, you know, that Pete Hegseth, man, I'd love to have him running defense for us. Listen, nobody is going to say that about Pete Hegseth. Not one person.
But yet he still has a job. Yeah. And the person that gave him the wrong information with his meeting in the South with the South African guy, he still has a job too. So
let the journalists into the chat.
Yeah. No. When the South African leader and they were talking about genocide against the white folks, and he was showing a different country's information. He's showing, and what we talked about is that either that was purposeful or somebody's going to get fired. Nobody got fired, so we can only assume that it must have been purposeful, that they were trying to deceive us. But you know, I think that's par for the course, which is ironic that I should even use that term since the president has spent millions of dollars golfing already since he's been in office the last 3 months or four months, whatever it is. Anyway, I got off track there. Apparently, the president is upset. Privately, he's talking smack about the Supreme Court justices that he nominated. Apparently, he's upset that they are actually following the law and not siding with him. So,
I'm sorry, Spiker Hahn. Wait. I need you to run that last statement back because Spiker Hahn is going in. Spiker Hahn, listen. You please come back every Friday because I saved a couple of your before we wrap today. So he said, wait till he talking about Hegseth. Wait till he drives his truck through the Pentagon windows after passing out. He said you can't smoke that close to the man. And the alcohol fumes are going to come
Listen, I'm sure Pete is a good guy to hang out with at a bar on Saturday.
No doubt. No doubt.
I just don't want him running my defense department.
No. And he's also one of those guys that he's good until he says, "Hey, now listen. Don't think I'm racist when I say this."
I got black friends. I got black friends.
All right, I'm gonna head out, Pete. Thanks, man. It was good for 10 minutes. I'm out, Pete.
Anyway.
Sorry, go ahead, continue.
No, so that was a real quickie. Trump thinks it's bad that the Supreme Court justices are actually following the law. Now, just again, we've been talking, and this is what we do here this week in Black America, is kind of highlight the things that are going on. And this week, there was a meteorologist, I think in southern Florida, who just made an appeal that went viral. That southern Florida, obviously, like my home state of Louisiana, subject to hurricanes. We are in the midst of hurricane season here. And he's saying that he doesn't have the tools anymore to really be able to accurately predict which direction a hurricane might be going in. And that's problematic because, advance warning allows people to get out. And I'm from New Orleans, who obviously one of the most egregious examples of this is Katrina. Happened in, about 20 years ago now. And the fact of the matter is that without the tools, the weather balloons and the other things that they use to predict these meteorological changes, they won't be able to accurately warn people to get out. And we're seeing it play out right now. Like in Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. This week, the Southeast got decimated by tornadoes and things like that. So the fact is that some of these Doge cuts, these are how these things are impacting our lives. We've talked and had a segment, why this is important. This is important to you because your life could depend on it. a lot of our people live in these places in the South and other places where if we don't get the information and don't have an opportunity to either prepare or evacuate, a lot of people are going to end up being damaged, losing life, getting their property damaged and things like that. So these are the real tangible repercussions of the things that we're seeing this administration do. And this is how they are going to or could impact your life. So if you haven't made those connections, I'm hoping that we can help you make those connections, because that's why this is important.
Wait a minute. See, a couple of these things. Anita, thank you. Welcome. She said, "Hola, gentlemen. Just got hip to your channel last Friday. Great commentary and content. Have a great safe week."
Welcome,
Thank
Anita.
you so much. Welcome, welcome. You are one of our new co-hosts. We're happy to have you. Happy to have your commentary. Everybody who's in the chat, you are a co-host. So we love to bring you guys into the show as you share. But this, as you were just talking about this, Curtis, I'm freaking out a little bit, because we spoke about how, Robert Kennedy Jr. is now the head of everything concerning health and disease in our country. So anything concerning sickness, a virus breaking out, a plague, a spread of a pandemic, this guy is the top guy. And we talked about if we felt, the question I'd asked to everyone is, do we feel confident with him being the top guy?
I'm surprised you can say that with a straight face. I really am.
I've settled into the reality. I think when we were first asking, it wasn't. It's some of these things we always talk about here, that some things we got to laugh about so we don't cry.
Amen.
And, but this one here, just to reiterate the point you just made with this guy who's the meteorologist says they cut the funding necessary for us to predict hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
Do y'all understand that all right? It's like when somebody comes in and somebody says, "All right, stop playing now. It's y'all. This is a joke. Where the cameras at?" This is like that type of thing. He's like, "Listen, we cannot accurately predict natural disasters now because in the cuts, in the name of waste that y'all still championing for, some of you are still like, cut everything." Okay, but without the committee to be going through line by line, because here's the thing, if you're going to cut everything because we're just wasting so much money, I said this last week on the show, you need to have, if you're not looking at what was good, because you're not going to say this was all bad. And Get Black with Me, one of our co-hosts last week said, yeah, they're reinstating certain things. Some of these things they're not going to reinstate fast enough, which is why you need people who are actually independent people who understand how dramatic some of these cuts are and how they're going to actually put us in a position to lose a lot of life if we have a natural disaster that we don't have the resource. I got to make a post because I can't get a meeting.
Right.
The reason I'm making this post, y'all, is because I can't get a meeting to show them that the thing that this daggone, $7 million a year that y'all was spending, that you just cut, that you think, oh, that's $7 million in the name of science, whatever you thought you cut it for, this is a big deal. The next things that happen, that again, this is just, I'm getting into like doom mode. Like I just had a moment of doom, because again, y'all, we don't realize how this is going to hit home. When these things, what you're saying is the worst things that we've had resources to invest in trying to protect, those are not going to happen anymore, or they're not going to happen soon. God forbid something happens tomorrow and this guy says, I'm telling y'all, we can't see that it's coming. Right. We used to report this stuff to y'all, and we don't have the resources now to be able to report this. That was a major one for me, bro. As you was breaking that down, I'm like, oh, this could get so bad so fast. And especially in, like you said, some of these regions that are particularly affected by hurricane. Aren't we coming into hurricane season?
We are in hurricane season
Oh,
right now.
God.
Right now. So listen, if you go into any of those places,
June 1st, Curtis. June 1st.
Exactly. I always know because my birthday's in June. So I always know hurricane season starts right before my birthday. And here we are. So here we go. Anyway, you'll be happy to know, my friend, that we actually got through every single topic that was on the list today. This is a rare occasion for our co-host.
Y'all gotta clap it up for us. This is major. Great job.
I'm sorry. I'm not 100% yet today, but
great job.
Thank y'all. This is great. We got through all the topics, and that's good because we just want you to be abreast of what's going on. That's our mission here. We're busy people, don't always pay attention to the news. Frankly, if we didn't take this role so seriously of bringing you the news, we too would probably be kind of sitting back and not even, paying attention because there's so much foolishness out there. But we need to get through the foolishness and really address and inform our listeners about the things that are happening that just need to be aware of. You don't want to be caught flat-footed. Somebody, I just ordered a T-shirt, basically, stay ready. And this is biblical. Stay ready. Look to the Israelites back in Exodus. They were ready when the Lord, in Genesis, when the Lord starts to act, when it's time to go, you need to be ready. So we want people to be ready, and in order to be ready, you need to know what's going on, and we're kind of hopefully filling in that gap for some of you to be able to understand the world situation, what's going on in places that you might not typically look. So tune in to us each and every Friday. This Week in Black America, that's what we're planning to do, is bring you those stories that are affecting your life, whether you realize it or not. And we value you being our co-host and taking your time each week to join us. That's really important. We don't take that for granted. So my brother, any final thoughts you have for us today? Great show as far as getting all the information out there. Our co-hosts were magnificent, as they always are. So thank you to them for tuning in. Any final thoughts you have for us as we wrap up This Week in Black America for this week?
Just a couple, just two people who I had saved comments from. One was DCO Fly, and she said, my adult son with autism just lost his food stamps. Thankfully, he's covered by her private insurance. But again, we like to connect with stuff that really hits home and affects people. So I wanted to make sure I brought that comment back, because as we laid out, this big, beautiful bill, and when Curtis is telling you, make sure you're laying on your Congress people, like reach out to your congressmen and your congresswomen and make sure that we put you in office to vote on these things. Like, we're seeing the cuts. We're not hearing about cuts coming. They're already here, and with more coming, more proposed. I just felt that was important. And then Spikerhan was talking about that the CIA wanted to kill Fidel Castro back in the 60s using fungal spore surviving in cigar tobacco. So I mean, I didn't verify that, but that doesn't sound like something he just pulled out of his hat.
Hey, it's not something I would put past our government either. So
right. So when we talk about two people smuggling fungus in, and so and then the last thing which he mentioned was, has anyone seen the James Earl Sutton files testimony?
I just noticed, and I want to look into that.
Okay, I am too.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, no, I'll check it out. We'll check it out, Spiker Hine. Like I said, you are welcome anytime. We are here every Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. Depending on the number of stories, we wrap up about 2 p.m. Eastern time. And like my brother and co-host Curtis said, we are always happy to have you guys dialoguing, sharing, opinions. It really makes the show. So we can't do it without you. We invite you to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And we look forward to being back every week on This Week in Black America.
See you next time.